All right, this is going to be a crash course in human energetics and how they work with your life, with your system, with your mind, with your movement, with your relationship with reality. And understanding this can have a profound effect on so many different levels of what it is to be here on planet Earth. There are a lot of issues that interweave. You need to comprehend the basics of this in order to understand the basics of this. There's not necessarily a good starting point. So we're going to dive in. We're going to give you an overview of many of these issues and be aware that most of the things that we touch upon in this blog lecture series are much deeper even than we're going to address in the moment. And there'll be more to learn. So ideally, this will be a primer, an introduction, a welcome, and hopefully inspire you to want to learn a lot more. Everything is energy. Everything is energy. My understanding of physics is moderately basic, but it's enough to be able to assert to you that the material world itself is energetic. It's all based on vibrating waves, and even our comprehension of particles is a little misunderstood, that particles themselves are more concretely comprehended as consistent wave patterns, and they're so consistent that we can rely on them to react in the same way again and again and again, and then they interact with other particles that are also consistent waves that produce an increasing level of stability that builds up the material world. The material world is dense energy by this understanding. And I am asserting to you that there are several other layers of energy that are extremely important. And to keep it simple, we're going to deal with three. We're going to talk about material reality. We're going to talk about chi in the body that flows through the meridian system. It's denser than prana, which is the next level of diffuse. Prana works with the chakras. Chi works with the meridians. Material reality works with the body, the blood. Think of these three layers as we begin our journey. Chakras are spinning wheels of light. They are understood to exist inside the body. And they mediate, they orchestrate the resonance of multiple aspects of our lives. What this means is that when we engage in activities that focus on our communication, we're using energy here in the throat chakra. And every aspect of what it is to communicate gets imprinted here in a way that we can look at. We can understand it. It happens whether or not you believe it happens. And therefore there is a degree of objectivity to it that we still have to learn how to define, articulate, and measure. Go with the sense that this is ancient. A lot of cultures have believed it. A lot of cultures have worked with it. We haven't known how to use machines that you plug into a wall socket to prove it yet. Nonetheless, there's a large body of experience that indicates this is how it works, and it's worth learning about. The system that I want to talk to you about actually involves 7 chakras at first. The reason this matters is because that's what most people know. Most people know about 7 chakras. So this is where we're going to begin. My contention as I begin talking to you about it is that this is a starter set. It was always intended to be a starter set. It was never intended to be anything other than a starter set. And it's important that you not confuse the situation. This is not a direct analogy with organs in the body. It's not like if you have learned about chakras already, likely you've learned about these 7, the root, the pelvis, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and the crown. There's a little bit of wiggle room on where they're located. There's a little bit of wiggle room on how they're named. Sometimes the solar plexus is called the navel. Neither name was used by the Indians or any other culture, obviously. So what we've inherited is not well understood. The reason this matters is twofold at first. First of all, there are many more energy centers than this 7. It's not really up for debate. Multiple cultures have used them. Multiple people can see them or sense them. They're here. They're in our body. They're functioning. The real question is, how do we organize this mess? How do we take a look at what we are and recognize what we can do to work with our own systems in a way that's most effective? The 7 chakras that I just mentioned were introduced to us as a way of making this much simpler, clearly defining the idea of a chakra, getting people to relate with this idea in a way that makes sense, getting people to feel things like a broken heart, recognizing that when you feel a broken heart, something's happening here. It's happening. It's objectively shattering energetic vibrations that have existed. And these vibrations have a profound effect on your life, whether you believe it or not. So the introductory starter set chakra system has always been designed to introduce you to how this works. And it makes a lot of sense to introduce you to how this works through some of the actual chakras that we need to use. The reason that it matters for you to understand that this is a starter set is that it's not a linear progression. It's not saying we're going to start with 7 and maybe we'll tell you about 2 more, and then you have 2 more. The difference between having 7 and having 12, which is where I want to bring you. I want to bring you to 12. The difference between understanding what 7 are and what 12 are is extremely profound. The most direct metaphor that will make sense is musical. Many of you have played a recorder. Remember a recorder from elementary school music class. Recorders are simple flutes, and they usually have 7 notes. Recorders are in one key. A key is a set of notes that sound good together. And a set of notes that sounds good together is not all the notes that you could be listening to. For very direct mathematical reasons, 12 notes, which is what a piano and a guitar and most of the major instruments that we use have 12 notes. These notes interrelate in a way that starts the cycle over again at 13. Because the cycle starts over again at 13, you can't just add 15 notes and suddenly have 3 more. It's a fixed system that works in vibrational relationships that make more sense as you study them. The simplest way to approach it is if you start one vibe as this long, twice that vibe is the same note. It's known as the same note on the piano. So all of the other notes exist within this range. They're this long, this long, this long, this long, all the way to here. That difference means that there's nowhere to squeeze another note in. Now you could put another note in between the 2 wavelengths, but it wouldn't sound good with the others. The interrelationships between the notes matters a lot. It is the way in which notes interrelate that enables them to work with each other. And that's all math. And the math of 12 is fixed. A cycle of this nature starts over. It starts over at 12. And at 13, it starts over. It starts over after 12. And because of that, there's a profound difference between having 7 notes and having 12. So the simple version I want you to understand is that when we use 7 notes, we're essentially using a recorder, like we did in elementary school music class. We're using one set that isolates you from the other notes. Because 7 notes sound good together. all 12 of those notes don't actually sound good together. They're in the same system. They're in a vibrational relationships to each other that make them fit so that the whole system starts over at 13. But they don't really sound good unless you say, I'm not going to play these 5 and I am going to play these 7. What the Indians gave us, what we inherited from India, was 7 chakras that sound good together. And that's all we get. That's all you get when you learn about that 7 chakra system, is this intro set. And so it's profoundly important to learn about the others, to learn about what comes next. And that is where I want you to begin. Wildflowerfire is not just 5 more chakras. Wildflowerfire is the capacity for all 12 of those chakras to be home, to be the ground, to be the base, to be the core of a key. When you have 12 notes, you have 12 keys. When you have 7 notes, you have 1 key. You have 1 key. When you have 7 notes, you only have 1 key. If you've chosen the right 7 notes, you have 1 key of music. One of those notes will dominate, and the rest will fall into harmonies. But if you have 12, and you pick them right, you could start at any of those notes, and all the other notes can fit in patterns. And if you trust this, and there's a lot of music theory out there that'll explain it to you, and I'll continue to share some. But if you trust this, you'll understand that a whole world opens up when we go from 7 chakras to 12 chakras. And I'd love to invite you to join me in it.